I guess I do. Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The select board's called to order May 14th at 6:05 p.m. I'm going to take a roll call. Sheila?
Here.
Pat?
Here.
Ed?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
And of course, I'm here. So, good evening, everyone. This virtual Board of Selectmen and Budget Committee meeting. We are using
I'm sorry,
the Zoom conferencing.
it's not a budget committee. That was
Yeah,
my
you
fault.
got the wrong
Sorry
paper.
about that. I got the wrong paper. Where's my, where's the correct, oh, how did I get that? Hang on a minute.
No, you had the right, I wrote the wrong thing.
Oh,
That was my
okay,
fault.
That was our last meeting.
okay. I'll start over again. Is the webinar ID correct?
That is
Yes.
correct.
Okay. All right. The agenda on the town's website has the information needed for the public to participate by Zoom conferencing from format or telephone. If you wish to participate through Zoom, you can join Zoom meeting. Webinar ID is 985-3868-9346. If you wish to make public comment and speak on an agenda item, please use the raise your hand feature by clicking the participants on the computer screen. The moderator will be notified and you will identify yourself when it is your turn to comment. Okay. Item 2, approve the April 21st, 23rd, 27th, and May 4th and May 7th, 2020 Selectmen's meeting. We can take this all at once.
So moved.
Second.
Ed makes the motion. Sheila second. Roll call. Sheila?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Alan's aye. Motion carries. Okay, item 3, sign the warrant for the July 14th and 18th, 2020 town meeting. We need to have a motion.
So moved.
I have
So
a
moved.
first and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Sheila?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye. Aye.
Alan says aye. Motion carries. Public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone who wants to address the Board of Selectmen with any issue that is not on the agenda. David, I think if we have any letters or anything like that first, or no?
I did not receive any written comment prior to the meeting.
Okay, is there any hands,
Virtual hands.
virtual hands up? Okay. Moving along, item 5, Goose Rocks Beach reopening recommendations. I'm going to pass this over to Lori.
In your packet, you have the Goose Rocks Beach Advisory Committee recommendations from last Thursday night when you met with the chair of the beach committee, and he reviewed those. The chair is in attendance if you do have questions on those, but I'll just review them quickly. We have taken these items and put them into an order for your consideration that is on the second page of your packet. It's 2 pages long. And it covers daily and weekly parking stickers would be made available under the Goose Rocks Beach sticker rules regulations, and not until June 15th. And the beach committee would like to meet again the first week of June to review how things are going before the June 15th date in case they want to make other recommendations. From May 15th, which would be tomorrow, through May 31st, parking would be allowed for Kennebunkport residents and taxpayers who hold seasonal parking stickers in 39 designated spaces on Kings Highway between Broadway and Belvedere. Starting on June 1st, we would open up another 19 spaces for Kennebunkport residents and taxpayers who hold seasonal parking stickers along Dyke Road. And then on June 15th, parking right now would be allowed for residents and non-residents alike who hold a daily, weekly, or seasonal sticker. And we would add to the previous parking spaces an additional 28 spaces on Kings Highway between Broadway and New Bedford Road. And then starting on July 1st, 2020, parking would be allowed for daily, weekly, or seasonal parking stickers. And we would add 35 spaces on Kings Highway between Belvedere and Bellwood Avenues. There would also be no fire permits issued on Goose Rocks Beach, and starting immediately, no overnight storage of beach equipment such as umbrellas, chairs. I think we lost somebody.
Mike.
We lost
Mike.
Mike.
Oh, Mike.
Yep.
Hopefully he's coming back. And there would be no overnight storage of equipment such as umbrellas, chairs, tents, toys, and watercraft unless permission of the beachfront owner or it's consistent with the restrictions of walking rights in the beach use ordinance. And this order would terminate with the state of emergency by the governor of Maine, because the first order that you adopted was consistent with that as well. So one issue has come up, and Tracy O'Rourke is in the audience as well if we need her assistance. And that is that the Clammers, the only flats that are open is at the west end of the beach. And the Clammers have asked if we can open up the parking spaces there. I did refer that to the beach committee through email, and just to let them know that was a concern. I think one of the concerns is, how do we open up those spots? Do we just do it for the weekend when Clammers have the rights to go? Or do we give the Clammers a parking pass that they could put in their windshield when they're out there clamming and put the traffic cones back? But that was one additional issue that came up.
So how many Clammers do you think we're talking about? Not that many, right?
I would like to bring Tracy in if you
Okay.
want to talk about specifics on the Clammers. Dave, could you bring Tracy to panelist?
Where did Mike go?
I'm calling him. I don't know.
There she
There she
is.
is. Hi, Tracy.
Hi. So basically, this is an issue that the clam warden had brought to my attention, that there's 4 spaces down at the end of Kings Highway where clammers park, and that's really the only place they have unless they park on someone's private property. And so he just asked if it would be possible to open up those 4 spaces.
That works for me. But the more spaces for me, the better.
Well, I don't have a problem with it. I think it's a great idea. I mean, some of these gens that do go clamming down there, they're in their 80s. So they have a long walk.
There's
So
Mike.
I'm in favor of myself to go ahead and open them up for clamming.
In addition to the 30, in addition to the 39.
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
Because the guys are just gonna be there for an hour or two.
yeah,
And
you're gonna give them a sign to put in their car saying they have the clamming license, so they're
Yeah, we
used
can
to
do
that.
that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That way
Yeah.
the spots aren't taken up by others.
Right.
Right. So, do you want to add
Oh,
that to the,
Laurie, you're muted.
So
There
if
you
we're
go.
giving the Clammers a sign, then we would probably leave the spots closed and just let them know that if they park there, to put that sign in their window and then put the cone back when they leave?
Would everybody who has a clam license get one of those? Or just people who request
Tracy?
them?
I think probably everybody would get one. We would just hand it to them with their license.
License.
Have you not issued licenses yet, Tracy?
No, because we were closed at town hall. and
Okay.
So there was really no way to do it. So I've advertised for Thursday, June 11th. We're going to sell them.
Okay. So is this something that we have to add to this paper?
If you are going to include that, then we should, yes.
Okay.
I just have a question, since Richard Driver is here in the audience, I would just like to hear what he has to say about it.
Sure, do you want to bring Richard up?
Hey, Richard,
Hi, Richard.
you're muted, Richard.
You're mute.
Not anymore.
There you go.
Good evening.
Richard, are you good with this, Richard?
Yes. One of the concerns, and it's one that Carol Sherman has articulated, and that is when people with regular passes park at the West End, a lot of times they're with dogs and they're going up onto the beach, and that's the Plover area. So certainly fine.
Okay. Thank you.
And the majority of the board responding to Lori's email was in favor.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Yep. So
If we need a motion, then I move that we issue special.
wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sheila.
Are you just going to do this for the West
Just
End
for the
Park?
clamors. No, yeah, just for the clamors. That I move that we issue special parking passes, whatever that may be, for clamming on the West End.
We're gonna add it to this.
We got to figure out how to do that.
You can make that a separate motion if you want.
I think it's
Okay.
easier.
Let's make it, all right, so I have a first. Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Sheila seconded the motion, so let's have a vote. Sheila,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan says aye, motion carries. Okay. So who wants to talk about the other on this?
I'll start.
Okay,
I have no where are we? I have no problem with May 15th through May 31st. I have no problem with that. My problem starts to come in June and obviously July. We are getting 39 now, 43 parking places open May 15th. What I'd like to see is the half of the rest open June 1st, and then see how things go. And then if things are fine, on June 15th, give us back all the rest of the parking places. That's what I would like to see. Because the way it's written here, even in August, we're not getting back all of our parking places.
Yeah, you are.
No, we're not.
You are. Sheila, you and I talked about that the other day, and so I wrote to Richard and I copied you on it as well.
Yeah,
And what they said was that you're talking about the 30%, right? The remaining 30%. And what we said was, at the meeting that we had with the committee, was that we would reevaluate those 30%. We
Well,
didn't
that's
say we weren't
I
going to open
mentioned-
them. Yeah.
I mentioned that, but by June 15th, we'll review to see how it goes from June 1st to June 15th. And then at June 15th, I would like by July 1st to have all of our parking places. That's what I would like to see, if all goes well.
so why can't we go ahead and look at it the first part of June? So to see how
many
things are
parking
going.
places do we actually have?
178.
150. How many,
What?
Mike?
178. Or
Okay, if I count
172.
correctly, this schedule is going to give us 121. That's what I'm counting. 39, now, okay, let's add 4
Yeah.
more, so 25. So at the July 1 and July 15th, open 35 spaces. We're still only at 121. We're not even close to 175.
178.
178,
I
thank
think
you.
it's 178, yeah.
I think the number's 173, actually, but
Okay.
173.
Whatever it
Looks
is,
like an eight-
but it's
it looks
not
like an eight to
121.
me. Yeah. So that's the 30% that we were talking about, right?
Well, see, what we're talking about is waiting until July 1 or July 15th to open 35 spaces. And that's not the rest. That's just 35 more spaces. So when are we going to open the rest to give us all of our parking? In August? Christ, by August, our summer's almost over.
That's the 30% you and I talked about the other day, Sheila. That's the 51 spaces
That were left over.
that were left over. And what you thought was that we weren't ever going to open them.
I
And
don't see that here, Mike.
no, that's why I wrote to Richard the other day, because of the conversation you and I had.
Right.
So, and what Richard wrote back to me was that once we see what happens July, I think it was I don't have the memo in front of me, but was it July 1st, Richard?
We're talking about sometime early July to
The other
look at the others, and it's essentially New Bedford Road.
Okay, and then can I just say that our summer, as a tourist industry, our summer starts the middle of July to the middle of August. Those are our 4 best weeks. I mean, some places are lucky enough to be full all summer, but some of the larger places wind up having, a fairly good June. Beginning of July is okay, but our biggest 4 weeks are the middle of July to the middle of August, and then it's, well, it used to start going downhill because kids were going back to school. I don't know if they're going back to school this year, but, if you're going to wait until August to try to give us our parking places, I don't agree with it.
So what you'd like to see then is maybe a decision made July 1st or something?
I'd like to see a third open by mid-June. I'd like to see a third, wait a minute. We'll do the 43 spaces. We'll do the 43 spaces, May 1st to May 31st. But then I think half of the rest of the parking places should open June 1st, and the other half should open June 15th, or work at June 15th to July 1st, if that's what you want to do. But by July 1st, we should have all of our parking places back. That's how I would like to see. That's what I would like to see. So I don't
How
know.
about Pat?
What's that?
What do you think, Pat?
Well, I agree with Sheila. We need to have all the parking spaces back at a reasonable time. So whether it's July 1 or July 15th, I'm good with either one, but no later than July 15th, we should have all the spaces back.
Okay, what about you, Ed?
I agree with Sheila and Pat, and I would open them up July 1st.
Thank you.
Mike?
My only issue is when they open up, as far as I'm concerned, is going to be dictated by probably the governor anyway, I think, as far as if we clamp down anymore. But the thing I would like to point out, that this was a committee that is an elected committee that made this determination through a 3.5-hour debate, who made these recommendations. And for us now to say that those recommendations are out the window, I think is the wrong way about going about our process.
So I have an idea. So what do you think about this? If we approve this would give Lori and I a chance to look at it almost on a weekly basis. If everything is going fine, we'll leave it, we can open it up now, but if it's not going to be going fine, we could also close it on the 15th of July if there's a problem. Is that right, Laurie?
Yeah, so this order allows in section 8 for the town manager in consultation with the chair of the Board of Selectmen to restrict it if things aren't going in that positive direction.
So we could go ahead and do what Sheila suggested, and then when we get to that point, if it's not doing well, we can go ahead and close it.
But never close it down again. You'll never close it down again. You never do it.
Parking,
Nothing happened.
The other thing too, is that we have a very different situation at our beach. We have a lot of beachfront owners who have 25 feet behind their house. And if their relatives, whatever the case, I have friends who come and they bring their son and their daughter who also have 3 kids, 2 kids. So now you're talking quite a few people. So you're talking more than 10 people getting together because it's all family. What if that get together goes to the beach? Are they going to be considered in violation? It's such an unusual kind of thing. And I feel bad for the police because I don't know what they're going to do. But everybody's in a different kind of situation. And, just because somebody steps on the beach and looks and sees, oh my God, it's like the other day, somebody was telling us that a lady had her 2 little girls on the beach. The girls were running around and the woman sat down. And she was told to get up. Sometimes those things don't make sense to me.
so, but why can't we?
Alan, before you're done,
And
Paul Hogan wrote in, I don't know if you guys see at the bottom of your screen, there's a question and answer tab, and he said, why not wait until after 4th of July? There are usually no crowds till then.
okay.
So we lose our 4th of July. We're losing our Memorial Day, and they want us to lose our 4th of July.
So
It's not a good deal.
we could probably go with Sheila's here, and then when it gets to these times beforehand, if, like I say, if there's something that's out of the ordinary and it's not the way it's supposed to, we just wouldn't open the beach up. We wouldn't give the extra spaces at
We
that
take
time.
away places.
What's that?
We would take away the parking places if
Right.
if it doesn't go well. But what I'm afraid of is that somebody's going to walk on the beach and see, like 4 people talking to each other who could be brother, sister, and say, oh my God, they're congregating. Do you see what I
Well,
mean?
that's not, yeah,
We
but that's not the only thing we're looking at. We're looking also at, York and Cumberland, how many people we're going to have with the virus at the time, and if it's increasing and
Oh, I
things of that
know.
nature.
I know.
So
But
there's a lot of things to look at.
One business per people in town, and it's hard enough for the restaurants to try to stay afloat, doing pickup. And if we let everybody know that we're we don't want our beach populated, that we're only going to give you 40 parking places or whatever the situation, it just doesn't speak well for the tourist industry.
Well, I've already heard from 3 select, counting you, Sheila, that you are in favor of doing this. Make a motion, we'll see where it goes.
Well, I would like to, all right, my motion would be, we'll open the 43 spaces May 15th to May 31st. And then, Richard, we're going to have a meeting very early in June, correct?
That's correct.
And on June 1st, maybe we open, instead of 19, we open, 40, another 40 or another 50. And then we see how that goes. And then by June 15th, we open you know, I'd like to see all the spaces by July 1st. I don't care how you do it.
Okay.
I mean, we could do this weekly. We could let parking places come back weekly, for that matter. And Laurie, you and Alan, I mean, I trust you, so.
So what do you think about that, Lori?
I think it's up to the Board of Selectmen.
Oh, boy, pass the, yeah, okay. So,
All right, so
Richard, I know
the motion-
that's not,
I would like to-
make a motion.
All right, my motion will be to open up 43 parking places as of May 15th.
Second,
Well,
Richard, could we have a meeting, or do you think we need a meeting at the end of May before we open up more on June 1st?
Well, the first question, the reason for our meeting in early June was to reconsider the question of daily parking stickers, because there are no daily parking stickers until the
Oh,
5th
that's right.
of June.
That's right.
So, and I would just say to you that the Beach Advisory Committee, not just the 3.5-hour meeting, but exchanges in emails for a week before, we took into consideration the issues that are prominent for you, Sheila, namely the impact on the
Hotel.
tourism.
First.
But we also had to balance it with the coronavirus. And unfortunately, Maine is not doing so great the last few days in terms of the number of confirmed cases. The schedule that we put forth, obviously not cast in concrete, but it was a staged opening. And what we have always talked about since this issue came up a month and a half ago was phasing the parking. And Mike is right. Unless we have a real terrible situation, you're not going to close the beach down. So we need to do it piece by piece. The only thing that I heard that was incorrect in terms of our recommendation is that the first 39 spaces and the next 19 as of June 1 would be available to anyone, not just the seasonal people. But, you know, our recommendation was the May 15th to May 31st was 8-0. All of the other recrecommendations were 7-1.
And that was my one.
Yes,
Just
I
so
know,
you know.
Sheila. I know it was your one. But all of the elected members of the Beach Advisory Committee voted for the schedule.
So
Richard,
I started a
Go ahead.
motion, 43 spaces as of May 15th. That leaves us with 135 spaces. I would change the amount of spaces given to us as of June 1st, another 68, and then as of June 15th, the rest of them. That's what I would like to see, because that's going to get the summer going. We may not even fill up all those spaces because we're assuming that we're going to be inundated with people. I don't think we're going to be. That's just my feeling.
well, if people follow the governor's 14-day quarantine, unless you own a house here, nobody's going to be here.
Ed, we have people here that they're coming from Massachusetts for the weekend, and they're,
Oh, I know, Richard. I know. I'm just being smart.
well, you know, it's
I see it in Cape Porpoise.
yeah, okay. And Sheila, when you say 43, you're counting the 4 at the West End,
Correct.
and those you just voted to limit those to people with clamming licenses.
that's correct.
So
But there's still
they're
parking.
parking spaces, but they were only be for people who are clamming. At least
So
that's
you'd
what their
rather not,
was.
you would rather not list those?
Well, we excluded them. They were going to be part of the last group, which is New
Okay.
Bedford Road and the West End.
Okay.
And the West End was in part because of the plovers. It's been an issue every year in terms of people with dogs going.
So we'll go
up
back,
there.
we'll go back to 39, right? We'll go back to 39.
So,
So my motion then, May 15th to May 31st, 39 spaces. And then we could even do June 1 to, open June 1. We could do a third of the rest on June 1, a third, the next third on June 15th, and then have everything open by July 1st. So it would be a third, a third more June 1st, the next third June 15th, and the final third July 1st. Does that sound okay?
No,
that's your motion. Mike's
Well,
not in favor of
With
it.
with the provision that
Nah.
should things change,
make your
We may
motion, but
not-
we're wrong. I mean, we had 3.5 hours of public input along with the discussion by the committee. And now what we're saying, at the 3.5 hours of that open public discussion,
but that wasn't
along
all,
with the committee, is through the roof. It's not
That wasn't
right.
all- that 3.5 hours wasn't all parking.
Just about.
Well, it was a lot of it.
So this is wrong, people. This is wrong.
Well, that's why I voted no. I think as a town, we're a tourist town, and the beach is what that people come for. And I don't think that we should be restricting on July 1 any of those parking places.
There was 7 people that disagreed with you,
Oh, I know.
including myself.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I have a first. Is there a second?
Can we be clear? Because I was doing a little math here. If Lori is right, and we have 173 spaces, that's 44 point, after we remove the first 39 that we said, that we all seem to be in agreement on opening from the 15th of May to the 31st between Broadway and Belvedere, that leaves the remaining thirds at 44.6 spaces, or 44 spaces. And I will second that, if that is your motion, to open the first 39 and then in thirds from there.
And then 44, 44, and then the rest.
And my rebuttal to you, Mike, would be that leaves 6 out of 7 of these recommendations that we will enact, and I think that that's pretty good. You wouldn't get that out of Washington, D.C.
You're not enacting 6 out of 7.
Yeah.
You're not dealing with the parking the way that the committee and the public wanted to.
Only
You're
item
dealing-
number
you're dealing
4
from-
deal. Only item number 4 deals with the parking after the 31st. All the other items we have dealt with.
That's the big issue, is the parking.
Mhm.
And if we say now that the committee and the public input is no longer valid, that one person on the Board of Selectmen drives it, it's not right that we give up the process. It's just not right. And who's to say we're right? That was a whole 3.5 hours of discussion I sat through, Lori sat through, Sheila sat through. And it was a discussion from the public and a discussion from the committee. And for us to go and say, now we're going to change it because of one
Well,
person, that's wrong.
People on my side too. I wasn't the only one.
You were the only one who voted.
Yes, exactly. But there were public, I mean, I got phone calls the next morning thanking me. So there were people in
Me
the
too.
public that.
Me too, me
Oh.
too.
So
So,
this
you
is,
know, there are
this is
people-
what I'm looking at. Let me just say this one more time.
okay,
We can still, if this goes through, we can still, if there's a problem, we can go ahead and back it off we can take some of the parking back, not let it go forward. That's all I have to say about it. So I have a first, I have a second. Is there anybody else, any more discussion on this? Pat, is there anything
Well-
else you want to say?
Well, the only thing that I would offer is, and you just pointed it out, we can always change it going forward if it doesn't look safe. And if circumstances require that we change it, I'm for changing it. But at this
Absolutely.
point, we don't know what the future is going to be. I understand what Mike is saying, but ultimately, everybody in Kennebunkport should have the right to park there. And if you just narrow it down the way it's been laid out by the people in Goose Rocks, it won't accommodate everybody in town. So I'm for this motion.
Okay, let's have a vote. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, Sheila,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
No, for the reasons I stated.
Alan says aye. 4-1, motion carries. And Lori and I will be water beach, the parking and everything else. And if there's a problem, some of these things won't go forward.
And I'll be,
Which is the way it should be.
right, and I'll be right there with you, Alan.
So there's one other thing we need to talk about on this, and that's the seagrass, staking off the seagrass. I think.
Well,
Richard,
wait a
that you're-
minute, wait a minute.
Oh, we want to,
So
go ahead.
the whole order,
Right. I thought we were voting on the whole order.
no, you just, her only motion was about the parking.
Oh, okay.
So Richard has said that the parking stickers would, their recommendation was June 1st, and I looked back at their recommendation and it does say that. And so in this order, it says daily parking and weekly parking stickers would not go on sale until June 15th. And I guess that is one question in the order, as well as the fire permits and the no overnight storage of equipment. And that we would limit it for Kennebunkport residents and taxpayers until either May 31st or June 15th. So there are other pieces, so I'd like you now to amend this order. So we've amended the order to the third, and 39 spaces. And so are there any other amendments to the order?
But going through it, prohibiting the selling of daily and weekly stickers until June 15th. I won't fall on the sword for that one. If we have to wait until June 15th, then that's fine. But I don't want to let it go any later than that.
So Richard has said the beach committee's recommendation was June 1st. Part of the challenge with the June 1st date is,
No, this says June 15th. Selling the stickers,
June 15th, yeah.
June 15th.
right,
Yeah, mine-
and I'm saying the beach committee's recommendation, he said, was June 1st.
No, that's not, it's June 15th, and it was built around the fact that the general store is not going to be open until the middle of June.
Right.
And so
So I
that
mean-
works.
Okay, so June 15th. And then we have the fire permits and the overnight storage of beach equipment.
Okay, again, here I go. The overnight storage, I think, is going to cause a hardship, well, for our police. Because sometimes equipment is stored on people's own 25 feet, and then sometimes not. And how do you distinguish that? And what are our police officers going to do? You know, or are they only going to take things off where the dunes are? I mean, I don't know. We have to have some kind, if we're going to do this, we have some kind of a means for them to do it.
Yeah, and I think that our chief has been a part of all these conversations, and we have a tagging system in place. So it's not just about the overnight storage, but it's also making sure that there is access and availability for walking on the beach. And so I think we have a measure in place to address that. The chief is in the attendees if you want to discuss it with him.
If the chief's good with it, I'm good with it. Because he and his department are going to be the ones who have to enforce it.
I think
Does
we're
the
all
board-
good with it. I think we're
Yeah.
all good with it. I think. Mike?
Unless he raises his virtual hand and says no, I'm good with it.
You know, can I, before we take a vote, one of the things, and I said this in front of the Goose Rock Speech Board, I came to Kennebunkport 35 years ago, and I remember, and of course, I grew up in a city, and I remember coming and going to Goose Rock Speech, and, you know, people going back home for lunch and leaving chairs and umbrellas and, you know, and now canoes at night and kayaks and that sort of thing. And I thought, wow, isn't that great that in this day and age, you feel safe enough to do this? And, you know, again, Richard, I know I don't live at the beach, so I don't walk it at night. I just think a lot of that is more controlling than we have to be.
Sheila, it's not somebody going back to their home for lunch. It's overnight. And the beach use agreement has that provision in it, and our brochure has that provision, has had that provision in it. What the chief has proposed is to tag any equipment that is left overnight, and the tag would essentially say you're not permitted to leave things overnight, and it is subject to confiscation. Not that they're automatically going to confiscate somebody's stuff, but if you walk on the beach at night and somebody leaves a chair, a tent, an umbrella, and what have you, I mean, at least one of our members said, you know, let me show you the scars that I have from that. So that's the reason. Many beaches, it's bring it in, take it out. You're not allowed to leave anything. If people have permission from a beachfront property owner that has the 25-foot reserved area, then they can leave it. But otherwise, our agreement, our ordinance, and what have you, really does say equipment shouldn't be left overnight.
I think it's dangerous to leave it overnight. I really do. I think that somebody can trip over it, hurt themselves. They, you know, they need to be responsible, and they need to pick up their toys after they're done with it. That's how I look at it.
So there,
Richard just,
I've never walked anywhere at night that it's been so dark that I can't see a chair. That's, to me, I don't know.
Richard, does this include the boats, the skips that are turned upside down on Dinghy Point?
Not really, but I think we've had provisions that people could store kayaks there. Our major concern with the kayaks is in the dune grass. And actually, we've got a committee that is going to encourage property owners to stake and rope the dune grass.
Good.
Okay.
so this
Moving
is
along.
this is the order that you have in your packet, and the only changes I have seen so far are the parking. And we are looking to keep the 39 spaces, and then on June 1st, move to a third, June 15th, a third, and July 1st, a third of the remainder. And so the question is, are you going to vote in to accept this order as amended? We do have a question.
Individually,
What now?
can we take them each individually?
I would really like you to adopt the order.
I would move that we adopt it as written
Amended.
with the amendments for parking.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
Can I ask a question?
Second.
Richard, if this goes through, is this only for the coronavirus summer? This system of tagging stuff and taking things off the beach?
I don't think so, because it's been an issue for years. I mean, Sheila, you don't know what kind of equipment people bring. There are floats, there are really large umbrellas, there are tents, there are canopies, and some people put them down. They're here for 2 weeks and they're there the whole time.
Can I ask a question, Lori? I seconded it, but I'm thinking, if what you're saying now is that if we vote for this, we're voting for the whole thing as amended. Is that correct? I don't want to vote for the parking. I want to vote for the other ones, though. So how do I do that? So I have to say no to the whole thing, the way you're setting it up.
Well, it's
Well,
not
we've
that I'm
already
trying.
voted for the parking, so how about
Lori just said we had to vote for the entire item.
So Amy has drafted this as an order for an emergency regulation. It's tied to your first emergency regulation order related to the beach. And so that's why I would prefer that it be an order that then you could sign.
So if this is an emergency order, then next year, this goes away.
If this goes away before next year. This is tied to the civil state of emergency.
Okay, so Goose Rocks then, the committee would have to then next year come up and do that all over again for tents and chairs and kayaks.
No, we wouldn't. It's in your ordinance. It's not something new.
So if we all make it through this summer, I'll throw a little party and we can talk about summer of 2021.
All right, I'm ready to vote.
Well, I only have a first. I only
Well,
have a
I want
second.
to understand it first. I want to understand it again. All right? I want to know if I now vote for it, I'm voting for the parking along with the other items. Is that what you're saying, Lori?
Well,
So I have
you
to
would,
vote-
you would be voting for the approval of this order,
The amended order.
the amended order.
So I would then have to say yes to that, but if I said no, I'm saying no to the overnight and the parking on the, and the towing.
You could vote yes and protest. I mean, I don't know what to tell you.
You know,
Why are we breaking them up?
I'm not breaking them up, but that was a motion that I think got made about the parking to see where people fell on the parking places themselves. So I'm telling you that with the town attorney, we brought forward an order for your consideration. She thinks this is the best way for you to approve this regulation. And we're trying to keep it so that things are together, and so we're not tracking, 6 or 7 different pieces of orders that are here, there, and everywhere. So we know what we've passed and what we haven't, and when it terminates.
Okay.
So there is a question in the audience about whether, there's no hands up, but about whether you're going to ask for any public comment on this.
we probably should.
Let's do it. I'm leaving at 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm just telling you right now. Yeah.
And you're driving, you can't even nap.
So you got till 5. So is there any public comments? David? Okay, I have a first, and I need a second.
Is that a second, Sheila? You're pointing
not
at the
here.
camera.
I made the motion.
I thought Ed made
I
the
thought
motion.
Ed made the motion on the order.
Oh,
On
well,
the whole order.
if we made the change on the parking, then I
Yes.
guess I'm fine. That's fine. Second.
So
I didn't mean to steal your thunder, Sheila.
Oh, no, I thought I did, but that's all right. It doesn't matter.
Well, in the beginning, I thought we were voting on the whole motion after the amended motion. So anyway, let's move right along. I have a first, I have a second.
On the
I'm gonna
amended.
take a
motion.
roll call on the amended motion. Sheila,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
No.
Alan says aye, motion carries. Moving right along. Item 6, consider
So
request.
before we move on,
Uh-oh,
while Richard's here, we have one issue related to Goose Rock's Beach regarding
Oh,
the
that's right.
staking and
Seagrass.
twining.
yes.
And so the beach committee did discuss at their last marathon meeting that we do a stake and twining project to protect the dune
Oh, right.
in conjunction with homeowners who live on the beach. And they have a group that's ready to do that. I think this is a great project that's going to benefit everybody. They have figured out that it would cost no more than $500. And they haven't taken an official vote on it, that they're going to do that at their next meeting. That they are in agreement that this is where they want to go, and they're asking for authorization to expend those funds.
So
So,
moved.
Second.
first, a second, is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, take a roll call. Sheila,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
Yep, aye.
Alan says aye, motion carries. Anything else, Lori, before I move along? Are we
Just
all
saying-
set?
Say, see you later, Richard.
Good night.
Richard,
Thank
thank you for your
Richard.
time.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, item 6, consider request from Hurricanes Restaurant to reconstruct the back on town property and use the space for outdoor seating.
Yes, so I'm going to ask Dave to bring up Ralph Austin and Taylor Benetti. Congratulations, Ralph, for learning to change your name. Good job.
But now I got to figure out how to get the volume going.
There you go.
Okay, we're going.
Taylor,
Taylor?
good evening.
Hi, how's it going, everyone?
How
Good.
you
How are
guys
you?
doing?
Good, thank you.
So Ralph, you're up.
Okay. Well, hopefully you all received a copy of the letter and the sketches that I had sent for
Yeah.
Cory. And Taylor Benetti, who's here with us tonight, is the new owner of the Hurricane Restaurant. I think most of you know that, or if you don't, you do now, that the back deck entrance to the Hurricane Restaurant is technically on town property. That deck, as I understand it, has been there probably for decades. I mean, certainly prior to Taylor owning it, when Brooks and Luann owned it, that was there. I suspect it was probably there for the prior owner when it was I think it was an ice cream shop originally.
Yeah.
Anyway, that deck is in need of repair, and Taylor essentially has two requests before the board. One is that they allow him to replace the deck with a new deck, same exact size. It would not be any larger, but it would also, within the confines of that deck, include a ramp up to the back door so that it would be handicapped accessible. That basically would just continue the use that the town has allowed of that deck for quite a long time. If the board approved that, that does not need to go to the planning board. According to Warner, if this board approves that use and allows the reconstruction of the deck, if he gets the proper plans, he can issue a permit for that. The second request is that Taylor be allowed to have a limited amount of outdoor dining and drinking on the deck, particularly because of the COVID-19 pandemic that we're under. If and when restaurants open with the limitations that we all expect, And Taylor, you can chime in if I'm wrong, but I think you'll probably be about 25% occupancy of what you currently have, 25% of the seats that you currently have. So even though would only be a couple of seats out there, every seat helps in this situation, quite honestly. And I drafted in a draft agreement regarding this to provide some protections for the town. Amy Chow made a number of revisions to it, which I don't know if the board has seen. Lori, do you know?
They have not.
Okay. She's made a number of revisions to it that essentially make even clearer than I did that the property is owned by the town and Hurricane gets no right, title, or interest in that property by the usage that you would allow. That no liability on the town at all for any injuries on the deck, whether just walking through there or sitting out there eating. And that Taylor would have to provide insurance that would cover the town as well. And then finally, I think the substantial part that Amy added was a termination provision that if, particularly with the dining out on the deck, if it got out of control with people leaving the deck and going into the parking lot, which there'll be signage on there that will indicate that's not allowed. But if it got out of control, it allows the town to terminate that usage of the deck. I asked in an email to Amy a little while ago if we could break the termination provision into two parts, because she provided 30 days notice by the town that all use of the deck would have to be stopped and the deck removed. What we would like to see is 30 days notice for stopping the outside dining on the deck. But if the town wanted to completely remove the deck, give us 90 days notice. Because if you remove the deck, to me, it's a bit of a safety issue, because then you only have one way in and out of the restaurant, which is the front. And if there were a fire in that area, and if you eliminate the rear entrance, it's got some issues. So, but we recognize that we don't own that area, and that if the town wanted to completely shut off the back entrance, it could. We would just ask for 90 days notice on that instead of the 30 days.
Can I just make a suggestion?
Sure.
If Taylor has, sometimes it's not the restaurant's fault, it's the customer's fault. And so if somebody one evening imbibed a little too much and, did something out in the parking lot or whatever, I would hate to see Hurricane lose anything because of one customer. Should be a warning system? Could there be a warning system? I'm just saying that if you have a problem one time, to then ask you guys to shut it down because of once, I'm thinking there should be some kind of a warning first. That's just a suggestion.
Well, this is just a draft. We're not going to be able to vote on this till we see the final draft. Isn't that, Lori?
I would certainly like to send you, I just got the agreement late this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to read the new one. But I would like to send it out to you guys and have you review it and then vote at your next meeting on it.
Okay. I mean, I think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't have a problem working through this and helping almost any business. So
I was gonna say,
I'm fine with it, but we just need to see the rest of the material
yeah,
in the final draft before we can vote us.
yeah.
Understood.
We've got to help our businesses downtown.
Right. I agree.
Are you, Ralph, are you looking for an indication or?
Yeah, I was going to say, if we could at least get an indication that we're heading in the right direction, that would be.
I think that's fair. I think that's
Yeah.
fair.
Ed?
Yeah, I did, when I first read this, have some concerns about, where it's so close to the parking lot, about people leaving. And to answer Sheila's question, I'm not in favor of a 3 strikes or a 1 strike or 2, or 2 strikes. It is the restaurant and the server's responsibility to make sure you don't overserve your clients. I don't think this is a problem, and I hate to, we live in a litigious society, and sometimes we get caught up on that. But the spirit of this, I'm very much in favor of.
How about you, Pat?
Same
I'm
here.
in favor. I'm in favor.
So, yeah, we're all set. Let's just move on.
When is the next selectmen's meeting,
2 weeks from tonight.
which is,
May 28th.
thank you.
Did you have travel plans, Ralph?
Well, I'm not flying anywhere.
You can always Zoom us, Ralph, from your destination.
There you go. No, no, I have no travel plans.
I was being facetious, Ralph.
Well, I'm trying to remember when Memorial Day weekend is, but
I was
it's
weekend before.
before.
Memorial Day is the 25th.
Yeah, so no, that's fine. Are you okay with that? I mean, we sort of have to be okay, but
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it has to go to the planning board anyways, correct? Once we've approved it?
at this point, yes.
Okay. And I don't believe they're meeting just yet. And they probably won't be meeting before our next selectmen's meeting, if I read my packet correctly. So
No.
hopefully, and I don't mean to speak for the rest of the board, but I'll have an answer for you next 2 weeks.
Yeah, we couldn't go to the planning board until this board votes anyway.
Correct.
Right.
But we don't want to hold you up too much either, but I don't think
I
that
think
will
it's
be
a
a
great
problem.
idea.
I think we're all in favor of it. We just need to see the final draft.
Yep,
Okay.
okay,
Okay? All right. Thank you,
Good.
thank
Very
you.
Taylor.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Good night.
Night.
Okay. Review of Kennebunkport reentry plan. No, excuse me, I skipped one. Dock Square parking lot operations. Laurie, would you like to take that?
Yeah, so I put a few items under Dock Square parking lot operations. Normally, by now, we would be open with the parking lot. However, this year, as I said, is different in many ways. With the closure of restaurants and retail establishments, I have not thought that it made sense to start charging at Dock Square parking lot. So I have a few items for consideration. One is, when is the right time to open Dock Square parking lot for charging? We have a new machine this year. You'll remember our old machine wasn't compliant with Windows operating system. And so we had a new one installed. And the question is whether we should begin charging June 1st, or I have written in here that I was looking at June 15th. And there's nothing magical about that date besides, to me, that might be when things are getting to the point that we might need to open up space for visitors. The second item was that the selectmen voted earlier this calendar year to increase the parking fees to $4 an hour from $3 an hour. And based on everything else that's happened this year, my question is whether we want to stick to that $4 an hour or whether you want to postpone that to 2021. The third question I have is whether or not, we want to allow the first hour of parking to be free to encourage more local traffic in Dock Square when traffic might be light this summer. Currently, the first 30 minutes are free, but they're only free if you leave within that 30-minute time period. The next item I have is related to the restaurants down there. So we just talked to Hurricanes. We last Thursday discussed the business reentry plan and the town's plan to work with businesses to help them in ways in which they might be able to continue to operate this year with all these physical distancing requirements. And so that can include perhaps outside dining or outside sales. And if people have the room on their property to work with them on that, and if there is an abutting public property, that we would work while maintaining public safety as well concerns. So in Hurricanes and Allison's are, landlocked down there. They don't have additional property. And the sidewalk in front of the property is a state road as well as a busy travel thoroughfare. And so the Werner and the chief and I have talked about different ways we might be able to accommodate some outdoor seating for them. And we looked at the last traffic lane closest to the river. In the parking lot, there are 6 parking spots there currently, and we might be able to corner that off safely from traffic and allow them to have some seating outside. You know, we've talked about doing this for the month of June and then reevaluating for the month of July. And then the last item on the list was when we should open Dock Square parking lot restrooms. So again, we normally would have parking lot restrooms open by mid-April. And everything that's been going on, we've had them close. And I have been talking with our cleaning contractor about how we're going to keep them sanitized to the best of our ability this year. And, you know, we're developing a plan on that. But looking to probably open the restrooms when I start charging in the parking lot. So looking for your thoughts on these items.
Who wants to go first?
Me, I'll go first.
How, I never would have believed it.
I'll have my say and then I'll be quiet. Number 1, charging for the parking lot beginning June 15th. I think we ought to start June 1st. Why not? I mean,
Give us a chance to see if the new equipment works.
okay. 2, I didn't vote for the $4 anyway, so that's up to you guys. I think we should keep it at a half an hour. Free for the first half hour. You do your errands, you go, you pick up your food, whatever you're doing, first half hour free. And then if you're staying there or walking around town or eating, then you're paying for parking. So that's my opinion. And yes, on number 4, and the restrooms, June 15th is fine.
Ed?
I'd like to keep it at $4 an hour. I'm fine with number 1, or with Sheila's recommendation of opening on the 1st of June. As I said, since we have new equipment, if it doesn't work, then we'll have a little bit of time to play with it, because we had issues with the last. Hopefully this will go a lot better, but you never know. I'd like to keep it at $4 an hour, but I won't fight Sheila on it if the rest of you want to go with it.
I'm not fighting.
And I think a half an hour is a good time span for some free parking. And on number 4, I'm fine with it as long as we can block off the backside against the river, so we don't have people crawling on those rocks after they've had a few and end up hurting themselves, because that's just an accident waiting to happen, walking on that riprap back there. And the restrooms, yeah, the 15th's fine with me.
Pat?
I agree with what Ed said.
Mike?
I agree with the June 1 that Sheila proposed. I think we should keep it at $4 an hour. The half hour, I think, is fine. We're still going to keep, are we still going to reserve the spots for takeout?
So because we have 30-minute free parking, you know, we thought people could pull in the parking lot, but if we were going to reserve some takeout parking, I would rather do it street side.
Well,
Is
Lauren,
that
really,
condoned right now? I see Allison's has those cones out in front of the restaurant, and you know, nobody's here anyways, but did we?
We put the cones out.
Okay.
you know, actually, the way I look at it, keeping those cones are important because we're reducing the number of spots anyway in the parking lot. And you know, when it's full, you can't find a place to park
Right.
for a half hour to pick up a meal. So you need the flexibility of picking up a meal.
Yeah, I was just asking if we're keeping them open, that's all, reserved. And as far as the, what Ed said about the walking towards the river, that's dangerous down there. So I agree with what Ed said there as well. And the restrooms, 6:15 is fine.
So the only thing I see we have to amend is the opening, charging for parking from June 15th to June 1st. Is that correct?
Well,
that
it's
the only
not, it's
change?
not an order, but yes, so.
Yeah.
So you're looking to charge for parking beginning on June 1st, maintaining the $4 an hour, keeping the first half hour or a half hour of parking is free. And you're fine with us allowing, the 6 spaces on the river to, have that for the for the 2 downtown restaurants that abut the parking lot.
Yeah.
And we're looking to probably prolong opening up the restrooms for now.
So you don't need a motion for this? You're all set?
If you wanna make a motion of what I just said, then that would be great.
So moved, so moved.
Second.
I have a
Second.
first, a second. Okay, let's go through it. Sheila,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Alan says aye, motion carries. Yay. Okay, 8. Let me find my page. Excuse me. Oh, where'd it go? Okay, 7, review of the Kennebunkport reentry plan.
So in your packet, you have what we have put together as town staff. I really gotta thank, in particular, Chief Sanford and Chief Everett and Chris Simeone, besides all the other department directors who really worked hard to bring a plan together. So just like the business plan, this is a living, breathing document, meaning this is all we could see in our crystal ball as of that moment in time. We're trying to look at phase 1 as beginning now. We say May 4th, but I'm looking to reopen Town Hall next week. And then we would carry it through June 15th. So you see how I'm picking that June 15th date as my phase 2 right now. And then phase 2, we would ramp up things. So ramping up means opening town hall to appointments for some departments that aren't in phase 1, as well as parks and recreation. We also have in the plan about Colony Beach and the pier, as well as limiting Parsons Way parking for the time being. So trying to do a phased approach in each of these areas and really learn from what we know. I think for the most part, phase 3 feels like light years from today. And so we don't really see much changing between phase 2 and phase 3. But we have a general statement that we will revisit our phase 3 plans as we get closer, because certainly a lot of this is dependent on Maine CDC recommendations and guidelines. So at the town hall, where most of the public would interact with us, we would open for, I think, maybe a half a week to just try things out. And then over Memorial Day weekend, it would let us revisit things. But we would open it up to limited people. So we would have, because we're in a small building and things are so tight together, it's really difficult for us to bring in more people and keep physical distancing. So if you came to Town Hall now, you would see that there's plexiglass up in front of all the front counters. We have plexiglass windows in the finance admin door, as well as the planning code door. And so we would start by just letting 2 people at a time come to the front counter and do their business there. We can take paperwork, etc., through the 2 doors of finance and planning and codes. We would get planning board up and operational to have a meeting at the beginning of June. And we would continue to encourage people to do online services as much as they can. And then we would work our way up to bringing in more people in phase 2, usually through appointments, because we really can't have too many people in our spaces. They're just very small spaces. And we continue to open up parking in various places at the beach, as we've discussed. And then as we work our way through Parks and Rec, we're still looking for guidance. The main DECD checklist is coming out on May 20th for day camps, so we're curious to see that. Our Parks and Rec staff are working on the best way to try and create a camp / daycare experience this summer so that we can help parents get back to work, and what measures we have to put in place for that. And then in phase 3, we kind of maintain until we get some better guidance on the next steps in the process.
So are you looking for a motion or no? Or is just acceptance?
I am looking to see if you guys have any questions or concerns about this. You know, as I said, this is a living, breathing document that will be changing, but it kind of helps guide us, and it gives you a sense of what we're thinking of. And so it's, I guess, a discussion point. You can certainly accept it, but understand that it's going to change over time.
Right.
I think it's very, very thorough. I think whoever worked on this should be commended. It's just a really good document. So
And they took a lot, they must have
Yes.
taken, you guys must have a lot of time with it.
I'm sure they did.
Better ones I've seen. It really is. Very
Yes,
good.
very good. Yeah, go to it.
Yeah, I think it's a good
Go to it,
idea.
Lori.
And are you going to put it on the website or some other place? How are you going to advertise the fact that this is what we're working with?
We can put it under our COVID-19 section.
Okay.
Put it in the star.
Well, that'd cost a fortune, wouldn't it?
It'd fill up the whole paper.
Yeah. So, yeah, we're all about it. Did a great job. Okay. Except item 9. These are misnumbered. So accept donations from a Nurses Memorial Tree from Linda Hanna and the Health Council.
So
We
move.
lost Sheila. I have a first.
Second.
I have a second. All in favor? Would
Aye.
go through. Mike,
Yes, aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Sheila.
Aye. I had a call
Alan?
come in and it messed me up.
And Alan says motion carries. B, $50, and thank you very much. I'd like to see that, actually. $50 donation from Lisa and Brian to the Emergency Food Fund. Can I
So
have a
moved.
motion? The first,
Second.
a second. Okay. Ed,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Sheila,
Aye.
F is I. Thank you very much. C, $125 donation from Uber to the general needs account.
So moved.
Second.
Have a first and a second. Ed,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Sheila,
Aye.
Alan says aye, motion carries. Other business. Ed,
I have nothing.
Sheila,
I drove through town just before the meeting, and I was very pleased to see I think all of the parking places in front of Hurricane and Allison's, that group of parking places, were full with cars with people waiting for takeout. And
Good.
it does my heart good to know that a lot of our local people are supporting our local businesses. And a big shout out to everybody that, you know, whatever you can do to help locally, you know, would be very much appreciated. That's it.
that's it. Pat, do you have anything?
No, but aren't we also going to talk about doing something for Chris at the post office?
We're gonna get there.
Okay, all right.
Mike,
Jump on.
No, I have nothing. No.
Lori,
So we
Hello?
have we have a I thought you were going to do it, so we
I
have.
am, I'm gonna do it. I thought maybe
Okay.
you might want to have something
I
else.
have nothing, sir.
Okay, well, we have a proclamation recognizing the retirement of Chris Fernald, and I'm going to read it. Whereas Chris Fernald has logged in 34 years at the main window of the Kennebunkport Post Office after walking a postal route for the first 6 months of his employment, and where Chris Fernald, during his tenure at the Kennebunkport Post Office, earned the respect and affection of his co-workers, the residents of Kennebunkport, and all were fortunate to be standing at the counter. And whereas Fernald's professionalism and postal expertise are something to be admired by all, and whereas Chris Fernald's warm smile, sunny disposition, quick wit, wicked sense of humor will be greatly missed by his co-workers and those who look forward to visits him at the Kennebunkport Post Office. And whereas Fernald was named Great Person of 2017 by the Kennebunk Post, and where Chris Fernald's last day of employment at the Kennebunkport Post Office is May 29th, and whereas Chris Fernald will continue his hidden talent of tailoring in the next chapter of his life, and whereas the Kennebunkport Board of Selectmen, residents, and his co-workers wish to honor him on this special occasion, and now there be it resolved that the Kennebunkport Board of Selectmen do hereby extend best wishes to Chris Fernald on the occasion of his retirement after 34 years with sincere congratulations and well wishes for many more and happy productive years. Signed this 14th day of May 2020 by Chair Alan Daggett, half of the Kennebunkport Board of Selectmen. Congratulations.
He will be missed.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, you will.
It was
So
very nice.
I have nothing to add. So I'm looking for adjournment.
So moved.
Second,
I have a first and a second. Sheila,
aye.
Ed,
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
Alan says aye. Motion carries.
Have fun, Alan.
You want to go?